Hello, welcome to another Tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I am bringing you today is called Summer Creek. It's a 5x10, and I painted this probably back in September or so. Um, Pretty happy with this painting, and whoops, looks like we are. This video is actually missing my drawing stage, but that happens sometimes. Unfortunately, I get the camera all queued up and forget to actually push record, and then I'll hear it go click, and I go, oh, geez, well, but that's okay. There's still quite a lot going on. I've got the rest of it. A lot of times, if I'm missing a big chunk of the color recording, I won't put them up on my channel here, but this has got enough going on. You should hopefully enjoy it. One of the reference image for this is something I've been sitting on for, oh my goodness, maybe 11 years or so now, and taken with my old Power Shot. And if you're old like me, you'll remember the old Power Shot and what a game changer that little camera was back in the day. And mine took really good pictures. I really liked it. I don't think they ever actually got around to equaling that. Of course, I moved into DSLRs and all that after a few other little digital cameras, but that's probably a topic for another time. Anyway, there's some things with this, the reference that would have precluded me from actually making a painting from it. Namely, the way, kind of like this golden, I forget what it was called, about 2-3 weeks back, where I mentioned there were some trees that were like a certain type of pine type tree that just weren't paintable, but I pretty much just kind of did my own thing in that spot. And this is the case here as well. These trees on our left, pretty much created. They're compositionally in the same spot as these trees that were in the reference image, but they're quite dissimilar. And I think what had attracted me to this was clearly the creek and the well, that's the other thing. I hadn't been working in this sort of panoramic format, so I found that the panoramic format, when applied to this reference, made it something workable, whereas working with more rectangular sorts of proportions, I had never really been able to pull anything off. So it had its time. It's got painted, and I'm pretty happy with this painting. It's maybe not as great a standout as some that I've done, but I think it's a nice saleable painting, and I'm pretty happy with it. Really, the fun part to paint was the clouds in the sky, and kind of playing with the warm and cool thing, which basically kind of settles into just warm after the glazing, which you'll see in a little bit. Well, there's a lot of things I could talk about today. One of the things I guess I wanted to talk about was ego and the impetus for creating art, but that's such a kettle of fish. I guess all that I would say there is that I think one of the things that drives us to create as artists is a desire to leave something. We know at some level that our time here is short and impermanent. And I believe that the creation of artwork is one way that people, whether consciously or unconsciously, attempt to address this reality. And the idea is maybe to leave something behind, kind of like I was here. At the most basic, it might be like one of these handprints in the cave walls. I always think about those because those were something our ancestors did, or they moved into painting animals that they hunted and things, and art became more and more sophisticated. But I don't know if the impetus behind creating it has ever really changed. Putting your hand up on a wall and then spraying paint around it is really just sort of saying I was here. And its most basic creating artwork functions as that. But then the real question becomes, why should anyone care that you were here? What are you going to impart? What sort of insight are you going to give them? How are you going to provide value to them? Why should they pay attention to your work? Especially since you're not actually there as a human being that needs to be dealt with anymore, and you'll run into this all the time with people see your work. Oh, your work's very nice, lovely. They don't really care, but they have to deal with you as a human being, so they're going to be polite. But at the point in time where you're not around, but the art is, why should people care about it? And I think that's really something that every artist that's let's say functioning at a higher level, at a professional level, especially in fine arts. Now in the commercial world, that question is always the key question. Why should I pay you for this art you did? Well, it's doing a job for you. It's appealing and cool enough on this t-shirt or whatever that someone's going to buy the shirt, for example. Or with the fine art, what are you leaving behind? Why should people care about it? That should be the thing you think about. In my case, I'm pretty consistent in getting a certain sort of attitude and approach to the landscape across. It's a quiet, reflective sort of tone that is relaxing to look at, but also not just sunny and Pollyanna, but has depth and darkness as well. So it's something that you could put on your wall and think about and contemplate. You don't need to know where I stood philosophically to care about my work, but you'll get insight into who I was as a person and what I found to be important by looking at my work. And at the end of the day, that's actually probably the most critical thing that you're going to leave behind is how you saw things, how you felt, right? Painting's very good for that because you can get a lot of emotions and feelings across by your use of composition and color, So I wanted to maybe talk about that, and how does ego play into this? Well, ego. I was listening to a really good podcast. There's a guy musically I follow. His name is MG the Future. He's a wise guy, wise person. I mean, not a wise guy, not a criminal. And he was talking about how ego drives you to create, drives you to become excellent. But at the point where you've created something and you've attained a certain amount of mastery and excellence, the challenge then is to know when to leave off with the ego, when to leave it behind. Now, those of you paying attention, you see how the scene just shifted? Okay, this is a dry painting we're dealing with now, so I can sense some of you get a little confused. Like some of my techniques and processes, you won't be able to pull them off unless the painting's dry. Like I just glazed this thing with a warm yellow, and in hindsight, I kind of liked the way the sky looked before then. Might have gone a little heavy with that. I don't know. That's the thing about glazing, you want to think about it. Because once you stain that painting, you'll never unstain it. You can just repaint everything, but then you'll lose the fresh quality. Anyway, I digress. So it's the ego that's driving us towards excellence. It's the ego that wants to leave a message for future generations of other egos. And that's all good. It's not a problem. It's not the enemy. It's not even a bad thing. But in the process, it has a job to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But in the process of doing its job, or sometime after it's done its job, it can become a bit of a millstone. It can become something that brings you down, keeps you from listening, keeps you from focusing on what's actually truly important. In this case, I think with painting, what's really important is to communicate and convey something that is a higher feeling or emotion. So many of the things that get our attention on a day-to-day basis, especially when we're talking about media that we're consuming, And a painting is a form of the media, a very old form, I would say. Many of the things that we're taking in, they're not going to bring about the higher thoughts, not going to bring about greater feelings of depth or philosophical insights. They're just going to entertain us, and they're going to get and they're going to try and get as much attention as possible. They're going to do this with sensationalism and a lot of times things like violence and sex appeal and or gossip, things that appeal to the lower part of our human nature, whereas painting can certainly do those things as well, and a lot of modern art certainly moves around in those areas and zones. But I don't know how successful it really is, because if at the end of the day, if it's not bringing about a good feeling, if it's not bringing about a positive aspect into someone's life, then why would they want it around? Why would they want it on the wall? Uh, you might say, well, a status. This, like I think of some of the modern art paintings that have gone for big bucks lately, and I hear lay people comment on how ugly they are and how much they really hate them. And I have to agree with that sentiment more often than not. But if the painting's worth $60 million, you're probably going to have it up on the wall, and someone's going to go, hey, isn't that painting that went for $60 million? You're going to go, yeah, that's a $60 million painting. Do you like it? How's it making you feel? That's the question. I think that's important. And so I didn't spend much time. I actually, if you've been following this channel for a while, we're getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers. So thanks for those of you that have stuck with me through this time. And there are so many people doing YouTube videos that will give you insights into, oh, here, I'm putting down some white right now, and da-da-da-da-da. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not that kind of teacher. To me, the insight precedes the execution. Insight precedes execution. So it's through insights that I teach, and it's through insights that I believe your work will improve the most, not tips on techniques and things like that. And that's one of the reasons I don't really focus on that here on my channel. But anyway, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me today. Today is the last day in January here in New Zealand. It's Thursday, the 31st. I'll be back over the weekend with another video. Gonna have a real nice past master for you then, so something really good too. You're gonna really enjoy it. So until the weekend rolls around, enjoy this video, and I'll be back. Meanwhile, please take good care and stay out of trouble.